Parker Schnabel's world turned upside down in a single moment when a collapsed mine revealed something no one expected. It was supposed to be just another difficult day at the site, a day of heavy work, bad weather, and constant pressure. But what came out of the ground that afternoon was nothing less than life-changing. Hidden beneath layers of frozen soil, broken rocks, and clouds of dust was a fortune unlike anything Parker or his crew had ever seen before. A staggering $75 million worth of gold, glimmering and waiting to be uncovered, shocked everyone who stood there. But this discovery was not only about gold. It carried mysteries, dangers, conspiracies, and questions that could change Parker's life forever. The season had already been a test of fire for Parker. He had walked into it knowing that this was not going to be easy. He had set a goal so high that most miners would have called it impossible. Parker is not the type to play safe. He has always been known as someone who takes bold risks, and this season was meant to prove that he could outdo not only his rivals, but also his own past achievements. Every decision he made was under pressure, because for him, it was not just about gold, it was about his family's name, his legacy, and the respect he had built over the years. But nature had its own plans. Rain poured down at the wrong time. Freezing winds blew across the site, and the permafrost made the ground harder than steel. Machines broke down one after the other, and Parker spent sleepless nights arranging repairs, juggling money, and keeping the production line alive. His crew was exhausted, overworked, and under constant stress. Small fights broke out among the men. Questions were raised about Parker's leadership, and there were moments when everything seemed close to falling apart. But Parker never allowed himself to back down. He stood firm, reminding himself and his team that every drop of sweat, every broken machine, and every sleepless night would be worth it in the end. Then came the day that no one will ever forget. Everything seemed normal at first. Huge excavators roared in the distance, dump trucks carried loads of dirt, and the plant processed soil in the hope of tiny specks of gold. Parker was watching, closely, as always, making sure every detail was under control. But beneath the ground, something dangerous was brewing. At first, it was just a faint vibration, the kind that most workers ignore because machines always shake the earth. But Parker's instincts told him something was wrong, and in the next instant, it happened. A deafening crack echoed through the site. The ground trembled as if some giant hand had pulled it from below. Parker shouted for everyone to back away, but the collapse had already begun. Soil gave way, rocks tumbled down, and a storm of dust swallowed everything. Men screamed, machines tilted, and the entire site looked like it was being consumed by the earth. For a few terrifying minutes, no one knew who was safe and who was trapped. Parker himself ran into the chaos, pulling out one worker whose leg was stuck, helping the others who had fallen to the ground. It was a nightmare that stretched into eternity, even though it lasted only moments. When the dust finally cleared, the silence was unbearable. The mine was destroyed, the machines broken, and the ground split wide open. Parker's crew stood in shock, breathing heavily, covered in dirt and fear. It felt like the end of everything. But then, through the cracks in the soil, a faint golden glow appeared. At first, Parker thought it was his imagination, the result of exhaustion and panic. But as the dust thinned, everyone saw it. Shining veins of gold ran through the broken earth, brighter and clearer than anything they had ever laid eyes on. The crew stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. Someone whispered, "It's gold." And Parker, kneeling down, touched the soil with his hands. He pulled out a chunk, heavy and glowing in the dim light, and held it tightly. In that moment, emotions overwhelmed him. It was not just a jackpot, it was a reward for years of sacrifice, endless nights of struggle, and a fight to keep his grandfather's dream alive. Tears welled up in his eyes, and his crew, who had just faced death minutes before, now found themselves laughing, crying, and cheering at the sight of the treasure that lay in front of them. What they uncovered was not a small pocket of gold. As Parker carefully led the process, removing soil, marking zones, and securing walls, it became clear that this was a massive deposit. The samples were rich, the veins spread wide, and the calculations soon showed an unbelievable number, $75 million worth of gold, hidden inside that collapsed section. For a miner, such a jackpot is a once-in-a-lifetime dream, something that can change not just one season, but entire generations. But this discovery was not just about wealth. It came with secrets buried deep in the ground. While clearing the site, Parker's crew stumbled upon something even more mysterious, an old tunnel, sealed for decades, maybe centuries. Inside were tools from another age, rusted pickaxes, wooden buckets, stone chisels, and strange markings on the walls. These were not ordinary mining marks. They looked like symbols of an ancient culture, mysterious designs that no one could easily understand. Some crew members whispered that this was more than a mine, that it was a hidden passage left behind. For a reason, Parker knew the value of gold, but he also understood the weight of history. He ordered that no one touch the relics until everything was documented. The discovery was no longer just about money. It had become about mystery, heritage, and questions that went far beyond mining. Was this jackpot connected to a forgotten group of miners? Or was it tied to something much older, something that the world had yet to uncover? That question lingered in everyone's mind. The news spread like wildfire. Within hours, social media exploded. Fans of Gold Rush flooded Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube with clips, theories, and heated debates. Some called it the biggest twist in the history of the show. Others claimed it was a setup, a trick by the network to increase ratings. Hashtags like #ParkerJackpot and #75million find trended at the top. Conspiracy theories popped up everywhere, with some suggesting links to secret societies and lost civilizations. For Parker, this sudden attention was both a blessing and a curse. His old rival, Tony Beats, felt the shockwaves too. Their rivalry has always been one of the show's most talked about stories. Parker, young and ambitious, has clashed many times with Tony, the experienced and powerful miner. Now, with Parker's discovery, the balance seemed to tilt. Rumors spread that Tony was worried this jackpot could make Parker the undisputed king of the industry. Some fans even predicted that Tony might fight back, either through land deals, legal tactics, or pure competition. The rivalry that had fueled so much drama now stood at a breaking point. But rivals were not the only problem. The government quickly stepped in. Inspectors sealed the site, demanding permits, safety checks, and proper documentation. The collapse proved how dangerous the area was, and mining operations were halted. Old families claimed rights to the land, dragging Parker into legal battles. Suddenly, his greatest discovery became his greatest challenge. Machines stood still. Time was wasted, and every delay meant millions lost. Parker realized that he was no longer just fighting against nature and rivals. He was now up against politics, laws, and powerful interests. The weight of it all began to crush him. One night, Parker sat alone in his office, staring at maps and reports. His face was tired, his eyes heavy, and his mind restless. He thought about his grandfather and father, about the lessons they had taught him. For a moment, he broke down, whispering to himself that this jackpot was not just gold, it was his family's dream. Tears rolled down, but then he wiped them away, took a deep breath, and promised himself that he would not give up. The next morning, he stood before his crew, fire in his eyes. He told them that this discovery was not just his victory, but theirs. Every man, every worker, every family connected to this gold deserved to see it through. His words reignited their spirit. They knew they were facing rivals, governments, and even history itself, but Parker's determination gave them the strength to keep fighting. Parker invested in new machines, advanced technology, and modern strategies. Drones, scanners, and 3D mapping were brought in to make operations safer and more efficient. Discovery Channel hinted at even bigger plans in upcoming episodes. Fans speculated that Parker's next target would be expanding the jackpot zone, unlocking more of the mystery tunnel, and perhaps uncovering secrets that had been buried for centuries. But behind the excitement, suspense grew. Reports suggested that hidden footage existed, footage of relics inside the tunnel that had not been shown to the public. Why was Parker holding it back? Was it too dangerous, or was there something the world was not ready to see? The silence only deepened the mystery. Fans waited eagerly, believing that the truth would shake not just Gold Rush, but history itself. Through all of this, one truth remained clear. Parker Schnabel had uncovered more than just $75 million worth of gold. He had stepped into a battle that involved not just money, but legacy, rivalry, government, and ancient mysteries. For him, this was not just a jackpot, it was the greatest test of his life. Would this treasure build his empire or destroy it? Only time would tell.